Welcome to the Story of Liberty. Today we have an important interview with modern-day abolitionist Lindsey Speed, who is working with a great organization called Trafficking 911. Unfortunately, slavery is still happening in our nation and around the world, and this Christian organization is working on the front lines to battle and save America's children. Through prevention, rescue, and restoration, these folks are doing the work to save and restore these victims. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It's the buying and selling of humans. We only thought slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, but it's alive and well today with more slaves than at any point in history. In fact, there are twice as many slaves today as during the entire transatlantic slave trade. The two most common forms of human trafficking are sexual slavery and forced labor. It's the fastest growing crime in the world. They are making $32 billion a year buying and selling people for their profit and their pleasure, with the United Nations saying 99% of victims are never rescued. And while it's true that there are children who are at a higher risk for becoming a victim, such as runaways and throwaways, all of America's children are at risk. Gangs and cartels are sending recruiters into Texas schools to find victims, and children are being kidnapped. People they know are selling them and threatening their families if they tell, and sometimes even their own families sell them. Today we have with us Lindsey from Trafficking 911. Lindsey, welcome to the Story of Liberty. We really appreciate you taking out time in your busy schedule to join us today.
Sure. Thank y'all so much for having me.
The first thing I'd like to ask you is, most people think that human trafficking is only a problem overseas and not in the U.S., but that's not the case, is it?
It's not. When people hear the term human trafficking, the first thing a lot of times that comes to mind, especially to people in the U.S., is, Cambodia, the Philippines, or Africa, or Thailand, and what's going on in these poor nations. But the truth is, human trafficking is definitely alive and well right here where we live. Sometimes it's easier to look at it as a problem overseas than it is right here, in our own backyard. It's estimated that between 100 and 300,000 victims are U.S. victims in enslaved in America every year. And so it's definitely a huge problem right here.
That is an unbelievable number. Just trying to comprehend that. 300,000 possibly in slavery in America?
Right.
Unbelievable.
And, it's not, specifically, it's not people being brought over here necessarily. That's definitely happening, and we have some statistics for that. But the truth is that it really is our own, mainly kids, over here in the U.S. being sold in the U.S.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How old are these victims typically, and how long do you have to find them before it's too late?
Right. Well, in the United States, the average victim, what average age they're forced into sex trafficking or lured in is age 12 to 13. So definitely a lot younger than a lot of people might think of. Even when you think of, the term prostitution or prostitute, you might think of a young 20-something-year-old or even older. But the truth is, the average age they're forced in the United States is between 12 and 13 years old. And once they're lured into this or forced in, their average life expectancy is only 7 years. And so, let's just say a 12-year-old girl gets lured in. By the time she's 19, she's not rescued or gotten out by some miracle, then a lot of times she's dead by the time she's 19.
Wow, the implications of that, I'm assuming because their lifespan is so short, once they are held captive, that they must be just treated horribly and live in horrific conditions. Right.
Yeah, you can imagine, when you think about their life expectancy is only 7 years, you start thinking about, why is that? And you really start kind of going through what their life is like. And most of them they get hooked on drugs by their pimp or their trafficker. They are obviously heavily abused. There could be suicide. They're getting killed. You name it, diseases. The list goes on. And so when you start adding all those things up together, it really does start to make sense why they're not living, very long when they're in this.
How do these kids get trapped in this horrible situation? And what are some signs that people should look out for to try to help these kids? Is there things that we can look out for as in the general public to find these children? They must be walking about time to time. I mean, is there a way to notice them?
Right. Yeah. Well, to answer your first question, how do they get trapped? That's something that a lot of people kind of have the wrong view on. When you even hear about this, and even when it's going on in your area, and you hear a story or something, a lot of people have the misconception that these girls and boys have chosen this. They have chosen this way of life, or they've wanted to get into this. But the truth is that is just not the case. Every victim, we've worked with, they've either been lured or kidnapped or, forced into this somehow. And so it looks a lot of different ways. Every victim's story is different. We work specifically with victims under the age of 18, and the cases have ranged from, social media, getting connected or connecting with someone on social media, building a relationship, whether it be a girl or a boy. We've had both cases where it was kind of like the boyfriend situation where they started to date and then finally they met up. And of course it wasn't who she thought it was all along. And we've also had a case where a young girl had befriended another girl on Facebook, and they both had all the same things in common, talked, and chatted for months and just became really close friends. And one day, this young girl was having a rough time at home, and so her friend was like, why don't I come pick you up and we can have a girls' day? And so, that's how hers began. And when there was a girl in the car when they picked her up, there's also a man in the back seat, and thus began her trafficking case. We've had cases where recruiters are sent inside schools, middle schools, high schools, you name it, and had begun befriending or luring kids that way. Also at parties, drugs and drinks, things like that can begin this type of thing. So you name it, it goes a wide spectrum really of these types of cases. To answer your question a little bit on what people can look for as far as, in your community, what are some signs? Like you said earlier, we truly believe and know that any child can become a victim. We've seen that case after case of, possibly the quote-unquote high-risk kids versus the kids that look like they're on the right track. We've seen them both types get forced in. But there are some high-risk characteristics you can look for, and a lot of them you probably would guess. Some things such as unstable home life, parent-child conflict, maybe they're addicted to a substance or their parent is addicted, depression, hunger, low self-esteem or self-worth, maybe poverty-stricken, runaways and throwaways type of kids, quote-unquote, are definitely at a major high risk. Maybe they have had any involvement in the juvenile justice system, foster care, or CPS. Those kids are definitely at more of a high risk. Maybe they're malnourished, or if you notice an older controlling boyfriend, that's something, or woman, that's something to look out for. Maybe they have a sudden change in attire or behavior or possessions. That could be a sign that they're being groomed by a trafficker or recruiter. So those are things to look out for. Tattoos are really common, things like cash money symbols or names, a pimp's name or something like that is really common, barcodes. So I could go, on and on listing some of the high-risk characteristics, but you kind of get the picture of what we're looking at here.
What does it take for a child to heal from this trauma once you rescue them and bring them to your amazing building that you have going on there?
Oh, you know what? It is really, really, really tough. You know, at Traffic 911, we always say, you know, we'd much rather prevent victims than try to restore, because restoring is really tough. As you said, we have a safe home Triumph House that we opened last year, that we have victims in now, and it is a long, long road. But just to paint you a picture, really, of what's going on, you know, in a sex trafficked child, when this is happening, what's happening really is they're being stripped of their sense of self. She doesn't believe she's safe anywhere. She has a central nervous system that has been really thrown out completely of proper working order. And this, a lot of times, she has no ability to self-soothe and often turns to anything she can control, like a cutting, eating disorders, a sexual addiction, drug or alcohol abuse. She dissociates from herself, has poor physical health. The list goes on. And so what's happening to them, whether it be 10 days or 2 years, however long that they're in this, it is a complete rewiring of everything they know and that they know themselves of. And the pimps are very methodical as far as making sure that happens, because that makes them a better victim for them. And so to heal is a tough battle. Most experts say that it takes at least 18 months to begin to break the trauma bonds that they have with their captor. And so, you know, that's a long time, especially, you know, when you're a teenager, let's just say, you know, you're ready to grow up and be an adult. And, you know, a couple of the girls that we have in our safe home, one of them just turned 18. And so she's, you know, she thinks she can tackle this world now. And the truth is there's so much work to be done. We have trauma counselors that are trauma-informed, trained, very skilled in working with these types of victims and just what it takes to really overcome. It takes a lot of creativity, because they all, you know, heal differently and need different things to heal.
Just thank you so much for the work you're doing there. I can't even imagine what the volunteers go through emotionally, just seeing these poor children going through these horrific situations. But God bless you for rescuing them and helping them. You did mention something about social media and internet. Just for parents who want to be vigilant in this, what are some things that the parents need to look out for with their kids' internet usage and being sucked into this kind of thing? Right.
You know, man, we do parent classes. We have a curriculum that we call Traps of a Trafficker, and it's for teens and kids, basically to teach them the traps that traffickers are setting for them and recruiters. And we talk a lot about social media directly to youth and how to keep themselves safe. And we also have a program similar to that for parents. And we talk to parents really openly that, look, this is what's going on. You have to stay updated and current with all, you know, at least with all of these new apps and the things that are going on, because so many stories we hear. These kids are using apps to talk to, let's say, who they don't know is a predator, on an app that their parents don't even know what it is, you know? And so watching their internet usage is so huge. But, you know, the biggest, and I'll mention some apps here in a second that we've seen cases out of and that are known to not be good ones, be dangerous. But the biggest thing we see is for parents is that open line of communication is just so huge. You know, being able to have an open relationship where your child or your teenager can come to you and say, like, someone talked to me, this is a little weird. You know, just some of those things that might seem innocent, but down the road could be detrimental. The lines of communication being open and you having that relationship with your child, that they can feel comfortable to come to you and not get in trouble a lot of times. That can be, you know, make or break when it comes to getting lured into this, because they feel like they have someone to talk to at home. But some of the apps that we've seen a lot of cases out of, you know, of course, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the typical ones that we all know of. But, of course, a lot of parents now are on those, and so kids turn to other ones like Snapchat. Moco Space is one that we've seen a couple cases out of. there's an app called Photo Vault that actually lets you hide photos, and it's a password protected app. And so, if your kids are sexting or, sending dirty photos, they have, found ways around making sure that you don't see their photos. Hot or Not is another app. Touch and Line, Line, Badoo, iFunny, Meet Me. I could go on and on. It's like the minute we think of one, a new one's being created. And so it can get overwhelming to a parent thinking, how in the world am I going to keep up with all of this? And so that's why it's important, to have that open line of communication, but also, set some rules. We talk to lots of parents that, have the apps that time their internet usage and things like that, where they can't be on it all night. There's a great group and program called Covenant Eyes that can be loaded onto your computer and phones that is Christian-based. It's really great for the whole family to just be safe, on what they're doing online, whether it be on their phones or their computer. So, there's so much to be knowing about, but it's really important to just have wisdom in how you're communicating with your kids, for sure.
Thank you so much. Very, very valuable information. I'm sure all the parents listening highly appreciate it. I would just like to ask you, is it dangerous, these rescue situations? How exactly does your organization go about doing that?
Definitely. Highly dangerous, highly dangerous. Human trafficking across the globe is a $32 billion a year annual industry, second largest criminal activity in the world. We're talking they're very well done. A lot of these perpetrators and traffickers are very well connected and have a lot of money, and so they can make in the U.S. upwards to $200,000 per year per girl or per victim. And so we're talking, very, very much a dent in their pocketbook if one gets taken away from them. And so we can't stress enough when we talk to the public, if you see something that looks like it could be a case or something, talk to law enforcement, call them, gather as much information as you can. There's a human trafficking hotline. I actually don't have it off the top of my head, but you guys can probably look it up and share it, that you can call and just give tips. What we do is we partner with law enforcement agencies. And so we work really closely with Homeland Security, local law enforcement, FBI, and work these cases with them. And so we gather a lot of evidence as far as working with the child, because a lot of times the victim, they don't want to talk to law enforcement, but they will talk to us. And so we work hand in hand with them. We don't go snatch kids off the street or out of hotels or anything like that. We leave that to law enforcement because it is so dangerous. One of the things that at Traffic 911 that we do is we go into juvenile detention centers. And so a lot of these kids are honestly getting locked up for a crime that's been committed against them. And it makes you angry inside. But the truth is they look like bad kids. It might be easier to recognize a victim that's international, but our own kids a lot of times just look like bad kids. And so let's say they get on drugs or there's a theft or they run away, they get picked up and taken to juvie, and no one's asking the questions to look under the surface to figure out why they're there. And so our teams go into, we're in quite a few different juvenile detention centers in different counties in Texas, and expanding outside of that. And we go in and we have a program that we bring in there called Traps of a Trafficker, and we talk to the girls and juvenile detention kids and talk to them about this, and they open up and they tell us their story, and that's how we're able to come across a lot of victims, is because they haven't opened up to anyone yet. And so then we work with law enforcement on their cases. Can I tell you a quick case study real quick, or a great
Sure.
report?
We have about a minute left, so go ahead.
Sure. We had a girl who was at at our or who is at our safe home, and she was brave enough to want to testify against her pimp. And so a lot of these victims don't do that, but she testified about a month ago down in San Antonio in her pimp's case, and he just got the sentence of actually four consecutive life sentences based on one of her big testimonies. And so it's just a really cool story to see true justice, being done for her. She's 16.
Yeah,
so.
Praise God. That's amazing. That's something to be very grateful for.
Definitely.
Lindsey, I just want to thank you so much for joining us on The Story of Liberty. And for our listeners, whether you're listening on radio or watching online on YouTube or watching us at home on Roku, please visit Traffic, TRAFFICK 911.com and get involved by volunteering, donating, or simply spreading awareness by sharing their Facebook posts and PSA videos. They have excellent resources on their website where you can find out all the information that you would possibly need to know to get involved and help. And you can find an archive of this interview at thestoryofliberty.net.
Hi, you just heard true stories of our own American children being bought and sold for the profit and pleasure of others.
Traffic 911 is preventing, rescuing, and restoring these tortured and traumatized children, but they need our help.
They are doing with all volunteers what many multi-million-dollar organizations are doing with full-time staffs.
Traffic 911 is keeping our children off the market as commodities and getting them out of the hands of the perpetrators and out of the jail cells.
They're also working to open a safe home where these children can heal in a safe, nurturing environment while encountering God on a daily basis.
Did you know that in the entire United States there are only about 300 beds for children like these, and only about 50 of those are faith-based?
The average life expectancy of an American child forced into sexual slavery is just 7 years. We don't have time to wait.
You can help by volunteering your time and giving generously to this organization on a regular basis.
We're Mercy Me, and we're helping Traffic 911 help these children. Will you join us?